Hey guys, hope you're having a good day. And just wanted to give you a video. We'll cover a few announcements and then talk a little bit about the next 3 weeks and what we're going to be looking at the Fuse and kind of go from there. A couple of things to announce. I have my little list here. Is Elevate is the first one. Your students need to sign up for Elevate, and the deadline for when we can have people registered is coming up. I think the deadline is May the 2nd or the 1st, and by that time you need to have your deposit turned in, or at least the payment for the registration for Elevate, which is $85. The total of the trip is $150. And you can go online at crnaz.com/registration, and there's a form online that you can register for Elevate. Then you need to sign up for sports and different things in the youth center or at the kiosk on Sunday morning. Practice times: basketball practices Monday at 4:30 to 5:30, and then some guys come and play basketball and they can stay till like 7 and play if they want to. And then soccer practice is on Saturday at 8 a.m. here at the church. And so that's Elevate. Your team can be involved in sports or talent like singing and artwork and photography and preaching and telling a story. And then Elevate's got talent, which is singing and different things of that nature. And so if you're interested and your student wants to go, once again, it's 150. The dates are May the 24th through the 27th. It's over Memorial Day weekend. And that's it. So sign up, be a part of that, get your money in on time, and that just secures your spot and helps us know how many are going for that trip. The next one is senior high camp. We're all going to try to go to camp this year. I understand that probably with Elevate and camp so close, you can't do both. And so if you're interested in a summer trip, camp is happening. It's a little bit cheaper than last year because it's a 4-day camp due to a big event that the Nazarene denomination does every 4 years happening at the end of June. So camp is June the 8th through the 11th. It's a Saturday to a Tuesday, and the cost of camp is $175. So you sign up and can be a part of that as well. There will be different things throughout the summer, different trips, not trips, different activities, as well as different mission experiences throughout the summer as well to be a part of and to do. And we just thought with the economy and then even some other things that are coming into play as far as the transition in our church, that to do a big mission trip with the money and all that is involved might be something that we postpone till next year. So with that in mind, like I said, we're going to have different mission opportunities in Phoenix and then in Chandler and different things that will happen this summer, and we'll be getting a summer calendar out sometime in May, and so that'll be coming. So those are the two things that you can sign up for and be a part of, and they'll be here before you know it. Now let's talk about tonight. In the next 3 weeks, it kind of came up through different questions from the teens and different conversations that a lot of teens are thinking, maybe a lot of adults are thinking about God's will and God's will for their life. So tonight, then the next 2 weeks after tonight, so for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be looking at this idea of vocation and calling and how the two interact with each other. And so there's a calling that God has on all of our lives, and how does my job and what I'm going to do with my life, how do those two fit together? Tonight we're going to look at a lot of quotes from a book. This book is called Irresistible Revolution by Shane Claiborne, and he really hits on it, this topic and this idea a lot. But then we're also going to look at two stories in Scripture. And so tonight is going to be the thought that because or when God does something in our life, it literally changes everything, and we look at all of life differently from that point forward. We'll share an example of if someone were working perhaps in like the porn industry, the pornography industry, that if they got saved, that we would look at them and say, you probably need to rethink your career on some level. And so tonight what we're going to do is why stop there, and why not when you get saved that everybody should take a look at what they're doing, and what does it mean to be a Christian in that field or in that job, whatever it is. Why would we stop at people who are doing something that we would claim is a big sin or obvious and not carried out to all people who now follow Jesus should look at what they do and how that fits into the calling that God now has on their life. So that's what we'll be talking about tonight. And so the two Bible stories as we're going to and look at are the story of Matthew, the tax collector, being called by Jesus, and Zacchaeus, the tax collector, being called by Jesus, and the difference in the response between the two. Matthew literally leaves everything and follows after Jesus with everything. Zacchaeus, on the other hand, continues to be a tax collector. However, his tax collecting looks different because of what Jesus has done. And so he no longer cheats people, and he's honest, and he gives back people money that he's cheated them on. I think it says 4 times the amount. And so when God has a call in our life, for some people, they leave everything and they go and do something totally different. For others, they don't leave what they're doing, but what they're doing looks drastically different because now we see people and we see our situation and we see the world the way that God sees them and how God views them and what that looks like for them. And so that's kind of what we're going to hit on is we'll have them, I'll have them do a little exercise at the beginning where they will think about things that they wanted to be or what they think their career path is going to be and what gives them inspiration. And then we'll talk about the lesson. And then at the end, we'll kind of look at those again and say, now, how could this potentially look different when we're viewing it through God's eyes and how he might see this vocation or this job that we think we will have and how could he use that for his kingdom. Next week, I'll be out of town. Actually, I'll be out of the country with my family. And so Chris Rothert is going to teach. He's one of our small group leaders and huge member and team leader and volunteer in the youth program. So he's going to teach and going to kind of carry on the same vein. He's going to kind of share his story and may look at the idea of Jonah and Jonah running from the call that God had on his life or potentially the vocation that God had on his life. What does it mean for us to not run? Even though it may be scary and even though it may be sometimes even dangerous, how do we live into and be who God's called us to be in the midst of sometimes hard circumstance, and in Jonah's case, even to his enemies? That's a big deal. And then the last week, I'll be back, and we're going to look at the idea of, once again, vocation and calling, and we're really going to center around a phrase, and the phrase is, at the center of your passions and dreams. Actually, I'm going to read it because I don't want to get it wrong, but the quote goes something like this, and I kind of created it from different things. At the intersection of your hopes, dreams, plans, passions, gifts, talents, and interests, so all those things that God's gifted you with and that you're passionate about and your talents and your passions, at the intersection of that and the real world, where we see what's happening in the world, at that intersection, you'll find God's call. And so God's gifted us with so many things and passions and desires. And when we take those things and we look at the world and what's happening in the world and we see how we could use those passions, gifts, and desires to make a difference in the world or to make the world a better place, maybe that's where we find what God's call really is on our life and God's mission and even God's vocation for us. And so that's what we're going to kind of center around. And so we're going to go from viewing all of life when God does something to us. We're going to talk about baptism a little bit since we came off the big baptism bash and say that old things have passed away. Behold, all things are new. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything in our life we have to do new, but now everything in my life is viewed as new and different and as a calling. And so that idea of trying to open their mind and their worldview and their eyes of saying when God's doing something, it causes us to view the world differently, to next week, potentially running from things that could be scary or that we feel God's calling us to do, and what would it look like for us to, instead of being afraid and scared, knowing that God's going to be with us in the midst of those things and plunging into them rather than running from them, to the last week, really trying to look at, okay, God's given me desires and passions and dreams, and where do I see those things? How do I see those things interacting with the real world? That God hasn't saved me to pull me out, but God has saved me so that I will enter into what's happening in the chaos and the craziness so that I can bring about change and bring about the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. That's the call that God has for all of us. I'm super excited. I feel like a lot of teens are struggling with God's will for their life and what that looks like. And so we're just going to try to hone in on, what God's will for your life is to worship Him with everything, including your job. And He's gifted you and He's given you desires. And so what does it look like for us to live and be who God's called us to be and center our lives around Him, so that when we do pick a job, when we do pick a vocation, the calling of God is still on us, and we use those things to bring about, once again, His kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Once again, super excited. I believe that maybe adults too. It's something that they're going through, and so that's where we're headed, and that's what it's going to look like the next 3 Wednesday nights. There probably won't be a video next week since I'll be out of town, but we'll pick it back up the week after that, and I'll kind of let you know how it's going and what we're looking like. If you have any questions, please, please, please call me, and I will answer as best as I can. If I'm obviously not going to be here next week, but you can call the office or Jessica and Andy, and they'll be able to answer anything that you have questions about. All right, this is long, sorry, but just wanted to give you an idea about what the next 3 weeks are going to look like. Talk to you later. Bye.